It's totally fine. I have a lot more stories.
That you do.
Yeah.
That you do.
Guilty as charged with the stories.
Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to I've Got Something to Say, the podcast by me, Chris Whiting, where I get to tell you stories about my life, things that have happened, things that might not have happened, things that may happen later. I don't know. I'm so glad you've joined me for this edition, which is entitled, A Lack of Preparation on My Part. So most of my life has been spent trying to figure out how to maintain or to get maximum impact for the least amount of effort, which is, I guess, a nice way of saying I've been lazy most of my life. And it's probably because of that I've been haunted by dreams throughout my life. They're sort of they're a typical dream that people deal with. They're in the zeitgeist, which I think is how you say that word. But have you had these dreams, Paul, where you're supposed to be in front of a group of people, or you've not prepared for this stuff?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And sometimes I push the wrong button on the podcast.
I felt like my voice went away for a moment there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So just to reiterate, it's those dreams where something's happening and you are not prepared for it. And I have those all the time. Even today, I will have those. Like, oh, I'm supposed to give a sermon, or somebody's died and I'm going to deliver a eulogy and I haven't prepared. These have followed me throughout my life. And A, like I said, they're part of like the collective unconscious. Everybody has these. B, I've spent a good deal of my life trying to get away from having to do anything remotely hard, like preparing for stuff. So it's followed me around. Perfect example, today, I woke up, and it's Martin Luther King Day as we're recording this. I didn't have to work today. So I woke up late and I stayed in bed and played some words with friends on my phone, did a little meditation, watched some Netflix, got up, had a delicious breakfast made by my wife, went back into the bedroom, got back into the bed, read a little bit of a book that my daughter Molly gave me, and then started binge watching the House on Hill, The Haunting of Hill House, I think it is. Anyway, it was pretty creepy. All of this to say that I knew I had this podcast coming up tonight, and I needed to decide what are the stories that I'm going to tell. And I just kept putting it off and putting it off. And maybe part of it was the last line of defense I had, the last chance to come up with a story, is my good friend Paul here at KCTK Radio, who makes this podcast happen. We were meeting at a nice establishment, or, well, let's just say an establishment called the Flamingo, close by us here, and we were going to have a little happy hour before we did the podcast. So we did that, and
a little fun before hard work. Yes.
You know, and it's good to maybe kind of get a little loose before you're telling your story. Not too loose. We'll do a whole nother story on, I think it's called Balmer's Peak. I may have the word wrong, but it was a study done that when people are coding, like doing software coding, you give them like 2 beers and they do better. But it's really easy to slip onto the wrong side of that peak. You do just too much and then it just all goes downhill. So I feel like we're in the zone. Yeah. When I showed up, I'm like, Paul, you got to help me. I don't know what I'm going to talk about tonight. So we started talking about, things from our past, and I'm going to tell 2 stories that relate to my lack of preparation and how it affects me, and then how other people deal with either a lack of preparation or other adversity when they have to perform in front of people. So I'm going to take you back to 1986, 1987. My good friend Paul and I were at UMKC, and we were living at home with our parents, going to college, which is pretty cool. And we went also with our friend Mike. Our good friend Dave Tice was down there as well. And I remember we were walking to speech class, and I don't know if it was you or I that said to Mike, "Oh, hey, dude, you ready for your speech today?" And he was like, what, I'm doing a speech today? We're like, yes, you're doing a speech today. And he's like, oh, God, no, I didn't prepare anything. Had that been me, I can only imagine what the panic would be like as it welled up inside my chest and my stomach. When I am not prepared for something, I freak out. And I default to, I'm going to fail. Everybody's going to hate me. Everybody's going to judge me. I'm going to be found out to be a fraud. It's going to be awful. But then I see Mike, who's just like, oh, yeah, I guess I had a speech I was supposed to do. Oh, well, I'm just going to talk about how to pick up girls. and I remember thinking, wow, I can't believe he is not freaked out at all that he didn't think of a speech to do. Quickly followed by the thought of, why in the world would you pick picking up girls as the subject? I would think you would pick something that you were like an expert in, and I'm not entirely convinced that Mike was an expert in picking up girls. But by golly, we went into that classroom, and you remember this, right, Paul?
I do.
Here's two things that I remember, and maybe you remember more or different things, but I remember Mike, as was kind of his deal back in the day, he was wearing like a sport coat or a blazer with jeans and some type of probably a Hawaiian shirt with it. And the sleeves on the sport coat were pushed up a la, Miami Vice, I guess, back in the day, right? That's sort of what they wore. So I don't know if he was Tubbs or Crockett. I don't know. But he had on the sport coat with the sleeves rolled up, looking all good. And I remember him saying, the first thing you want to think about is your clothing. And women love a sport coat. And so there he is in his dumbass sport coat with the sleeves rolled up. And I remember he talked about the importance of having the sleeves pushed up, showing off the forearms. And I remember him telling us you need to be careful how you walk. And he walked back and forth in front of the class, showing us the quintessential walk for picking up chicks. And then he came back to the desk, and he was still standing up, but he leaned back against the desk. So he had his butt, if you will, leaning on the desk. And then he slid his fingers, all four fingers from each hand, down into his pockets of his jeans. And then he talked about framing and how it's important to put your fingers in the pockets of your jeans and then use your thumbs to point down toward and frame the crotchal region, making it look tantalizing to the ladies. And I remember laughing out loud and thinking, oh my God, he's not going to get a good grade on this. He's just not. Is there anything that I don't remember that you do from that?
Do you remember what kind of grade he got? Because I don't remember.
I think he got a bad grade. I think it was a C or a D, and I think specifically the teacher talked about a lack of preparation that may have went into the speech. Also the topic, and I know he was pissed about it and did not agree at all. But I was... The lesson for me was that, okay, you need to quit worrying. Okay, preparation is good. You should prepare. But if you're not, don't care so much about what people think. Just get out there and do it. And this has been something that's like stayed with me my whole life. And it's interesting because today, and there's going to be language. So if you have kids listening to this, have them earmuff it right now. But my wife, Jane, who is lovely, was listening to a book on tape, and it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Oh my. I know. I can't believe it has the F word. But the guy's premise, as far as I could tell from the little bit that I listened to, was that you have a finite amount of fucks to give. And so you need to be careful what you give enough energy to actually give a fuck about. And my whole life, I've given, and again, I apologize for the language, way too many fucks about people or instances that don't particularly matter And I'm concerned about what they think of me, which just, I think, speaks to maybe somebody with a bit of an ego problem. So, which leads me to my other good friend, not Mike, but Paul. Yay. And Paul and I have done stand-up comedy together. If you're a frequent listener to this show, then you know we've done multiple radio shows together. We're doing this podcast, maybe another one as well, together. But when we did stand-up comedy, what was interesting to me is I feel like I went into comedy to be validated. Like, I needed people to let me know I'm funny. Hey, Chris, you're funny, and you're funny because I say so, and I'm laughing at you. So when I would go into a room and kill, and people would laugh, hey, that was awesome. I'm getting validated. My ego's getting blown up. But when I would go in and I would bomb, and I mean bomb, silent room, tumbleweeds going across, people yelling out, you suck, just awful stuff like that happened, I would become so small and so scared, and I would just, I would crawl inside of myself, and I didn't know how to handle it. My buddy Paul, on the other hand, was kind of the opposite of that. When he would bomb, and oh, did he bomb? Oh. I'm kidding. No, he was very good, but everybody bombs. Even the best comic in the world has stories about bombing. When Paul would bomb, it was beautiful to watch for me. Not because I wanted to see you bomb, but I could see the point. I mean, I know you well enough. I could see that point where you were like, oh, okay, well, these people aren't going to laugh at my show. Well, guess what? Now my show's about me. So all I'm going to do is entertain myself. And you would go into this other mode, into this other zone, and it was so fun to watch. And I want to have that. I really want to get there. But I think the difference was I was giving a fuck about a room full of strangers and what they thought of me. As per the title of the book, you were sort of, you were more adept than me at being, at mastering the subtle art of not giving a fuck. And so, I don't know, can you describe what would happen when you would start to bomb up there?
Well, I guess the only thing I could think of is that it wasn't a life or death situation, so I didn't really care, and I wanted to stick to my material and practice it out. And plus, part of the persona or whatever attitude I had was that. I didn't care what you thought.
Right.
So that was easier that way. But, I mean, have you done the story about the Laugh Olympics?
I don't think I have.
Oh, folks.
Well, yeah, we're going to have to do that.
Yeah. So we're not near professional, but I think real good professionals, they don't care.
No.
That they bomb. In fact, the more they bomb, the better they become.
Yes. Yes.
Which may be limiting to your career as a stand-up comedian.
It may be limiting to me in my career in anything because this fear of failure wells up, and if people don't, shower me with accolades and pat me on the back and tell me I'm a great guy and lift me up on their shoulders and sing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow, then I think I'm worthless. I'm a beehole, and it's not a good place to be. So I guess what I'll end with is this. I am, even at 50 years old, I am still looking at people that have these characteristics and qualities that I would like to emulate and get better at. My good buddy Mike, who, God bless him, is no longer with us. My good buddy Paul, who, thank God, is still with me, exhibit these things that I want to get better at. So my promise to the listeners is that as soon as Jane is done with the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I'm going to listen to The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck and see if there's anything I can take from that to not only, improve my life, but improve my interactions and the quality of the product that I put out for all you nice people out there. So that does it for this edition of I've Got Something to Say. I'm Chris Whiting. Thank you so much for listening. As always, bigly thanks to KCTK Radio, my good buddy Paul, for making this happen. It's kind of a dream come true, and it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for them. Check out all of their quality podcasts, and I will talk to you next time.